I believe you wouldn't write nonsense this time around.
She dropped her pencil. The sharp clatter echoed across the silent exam hall, drawing every eye toward her. Amara Okoye froze, her fingers hovering mid-air as if even breathing too loudly might shatter what little composure she had left. A few students snickered. "Of course it's her," someone whispered. At the front of the hall, Miss Hargrove slowly looked up from her desk, her sharp gaze cutting through the room. She walked toward Amara with deliberate steps, heels tapping like a ticking clock. "Pick it up," she said flatly. Amara bent down quickly, her hands trembling as she retrieved the pencil. When she sat back up, she avoided eye contact. Miss Hargrove leaned slightly closer. "Let's hope," she said quietly but loud enough for nearby students to hear, "that today you at least attempt to write something meaningful." A few muffled laughs followed. Amara swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight but she said nothing. "Begin," Miss Hargrove announced, returning to the front. "This exam will determine who is ready to move forward, and who is not." Papers were distributed. Amara stared at hers. The words blurred at first. Her heart pounded loudly in her ears. For a moment, all she could hear were the whispers from the past weeks. "She's always last. She doesn't belong here. She'll fail again." Her grip tightened around the pencil. Then slowly she exhaled. The noise faded. Her eyes refocused, and she began to read. The night before flashed in her mind. A dim room. A flickering bulb. Her mother, Ngozi, hunched over a sewing machine, the steady rhythm filling the silence. "You should sleep," her mother had said without looking up. "I will," Amara replied softly, though she didn't move. "You said that 2 hours ago." Amara hesitated. "Mama, what if I fail again?" The sewing stopped. Ngozi finally turned, her tired eyes softening. "Then you try again. They'll laugh." "They already do," Ngozi said gently. "And you're still standing." Amara looked down. "I see you," her mother continued. "Even when they don't. That's enough, for now." Amara didn't respond, but she picked up her book again. Back in the hall, her pencil moved. One answer. Then another. Her breathing steadied. Minutes passed. Students around her shifted, sighed, scratched their heads. A boy nearby groaned under his breath. "This is impossible," he muttered. Amara didn't look up. She turned the page. Her writing became more fluid, more certain. Miss Hargrove noticed. From across the room, she watched Amara's hand move without hesitation. That was new. She frowned slightly and stood, beginning her slow walk between the rows. When she reached Amara's desk, she stopped. Amara didn't notice at first. "Interesting," Miss Hargrove said. Amara's hand paused. "Continue," the teacher added, her tone unreadable. Amara obeyed. Miss Hargrove leaned slightly, scanning the page. Her eyes narrowed. The structure was precise. The reasoning, unexpectedly clear. She straightened quickly, masking her reaction, and walked away. But her pace had changed. Time passed. The tension in the room thickened. Students who had mocked earlier were now struggling. Amara kept writing. She flipped another page. A girl across from her whispered, "How many pages are there?" "No idea," someone replied nervously. Amara didn't join the panic. For the first time she felt calm. Not because the exam was easy, but because she understood it. Every question felt like something she had already wrestled with in silence, late at night when no one was watching. She reached the final section. Her pencil hovered briefly. Then she smiled just slightly. And continued. "Stop." Miss Hargrove's voice cut through the air. Pens down. The room exhaled collectively. Papers were collected row by row. When Amara handed hers over, her fingers brushed against Miss Hargrove's hand. The teacher paused. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Amara looked away first. Hours later, the hall was empty. Stacks of papers sat on Miss Hargrove's desk. She removed her glasses and rubbed her temples. "Let's see," she muttered. One by one she began marking. Correct. Incorrect. Partial credit. Average. Expected. Then she picked up Amara's paper. A faint scoff escaped her lips. "Let's confirm this quickly." She read the first answer. Her pen hovered. Then slowly she marked it correct. She moved to the next. Correct. Her posture straightened. Third question. Not just correct, exceptional. She leaned forward. What? Her eyes moved faster now. Each answer built upon the last, showing depth she hadn't anticipated. By the middle of the script, her expression had changed completely. By the end, she set the pen down. Silence filled the room. "This isn't possible," she whispered. But it was. She flipped back through the pages again, searching for mistakes. There were none. Not only had Amara passed, she had outperformed everyone. Miss Hargrove sat back slowly, staring at the paper as if it might change if she looked away. Then her own words echoed in her mind. Some people are simply not meant for excellence. Her jaw tightened. For the first time in years, doubt crept in, not about a student, but about herself. The next morning, the classroom buzzed with anticipation. Results today, someone said. I heard it was hard. I definitely failed. Amara sat quietly, her hands folded. She didn't speak. Miss Hargrove entered. The room fell silent instantly. She held a stack of papers. But something about her was different. Less rigid. More measured. I have reviewed your exams, she began. Pause. Some of you performed as expected. A few nervous laughs. Some did not. Silence again. And one of you, she stopped, glancing down briefly, has given me reason to reconsider everything I thought I understood about ability. The room shifted. Students exchanged looks. Miss Hargrove lifted a single paper. Amara Okoye. The name landed like a shockwave. Heads turned instantly. What? No way. Amara blinked. For a moment she thought she had misheard. Come forward, Miss Hargrove said. Her legs felt heavy but she stood. Each step toward the front felt unreal. When she reached the desk, Miss Hargrove held out the paper. Amara hesitated before taking it. At the top, written clearly, 100%. Her breath caught. You didn't just pass, Miss Hargrove said, her voice quieter now. You excelled. The room was completely silent. I was wrong about you. That sentence hit harder than anything else. Amara looked up, searching her face. For the first time there was no mockery there. Only something unfamiliar. Respect. But then Miss Hargrove did something no one expected. She turned to her desk and picked up a framed certificate. The room stirred. This, she said slowly, represents years of study, discipline, and pride. She looked at Amara. Yesterday, I used that pride to belittle someone I did not understand. Her grip tightened on the frame. And I made a promise. The room held its breath. With a sudden motion, she removed the certificate and tore it in half. The sound ripped through the silence. Gasps erupted. Someone whispered, she actually did it? Miss Hargrove placed the torn pieces on the desk. Then she faced the class. This is what arrogance costs, she said firmly. It blinds you. Her eyes moved across the students. And I will not teach from blindness again. Then she turned back to Amara. You earn more than a grade, she said. You earn the truth. Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Thank you, she whispered. That afternoon Amara ran home. Mama, she called, bursting through the door. Ngozi looked up, startled. What happened? Amara held out the paper, her hands shaking, not from fear this time but something else. Her mother took it, read it, and froze. Then slowly her face broke into a smile, one filled with disbelief, relief, and pride all at once. You did this? She asked softly. Amara nodded. Ngozi pulled her into a tight embrace. I knew it, she whispered. I knew it. Amara closed her eyes, finally allowing the tears to fall. Not of pain, but of release. The next day at school things felt different. People looked at her, but not with mockery. With curiosity. Even respect. A boy who once laughed at her nodded slightly as she passed. She nodded back. Quiet. Confident. No longer invisible. That evening, Amara sat at her small desk again. The same flickering light. The same worn books. But something had changed. Not the room. Not the circumstances. Her. She picked up her pencil. Paused. Then began to write again. Because this time, she knew exactly who she was. If this story moved you even a little, don't just scroll away. Take a second to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and drop a comment saying, never give up. Because sometimes the quiet ones are just waiting for their moment. And when it comes, it changes everything. Backhand index pointing up. The whispers didn't stop the next day. They changed. Amara could feel it the moment she stepped into the classroom. They said she got full marks. No, that's impossible. I heard Miss Hargrove made a mistake. She must have cheated. The last one lingered longer than the others. Amara paused at the doorway, her fingers tightening slightly around her bag. For a brief second, the confidence she had built the day before flickered. Then she walked in. Steady. Quiet. Unapologetic. She took her seat. The room buzzed louder now that she was inside. A boy from the back leaned forward. So, genius now? He said with a smirk. A few students chuckled. Amara didn't respond. She placed her notebook on the desk and opened it calmly. Or maybe, a girl added, folding her arms, you just got lucky. Amara finally looked up. Maybe, she said simply. Her calmness only made them more uncomfortable. Before anyone could respond, the door opened. Miss Hargrove entered. Silence fell instantly. But this time it wasn't just fear. It was anticipation. She walked to the front, her posture composed, her expression firm, but no longer cold. I'm aware of the discussions happening in this room, she said without raising her voice. No one spoke. Doubt is natural, she continued. But accusations without evidence are not. Her gaze moved across the class. And so we will address it. A ripple of tension spread. Ms. Hargrove turned to the board and picked up a marker. Books away. Groans filled the room. Another exam? Someone muttered. No, she replied. Something simpler. She began writing questions on the board. Different from the exam. Harder. More direct. Amara, she said without turning, you'll solve these. The room shifted again. Every eye locked onto her. This wasn't just a test anymore. This was a challenge. Amara's heartbeat quickened. For a moment the old fear crept back in. What if yesterday was a fluke? What if they were right? Come forward, Miss Hargrove said. Amara stood slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached the board, the marker was placed in her hand. It felt heavier than it should. You may begin, Miss Hargrove said, stepping aside. The room held its breath. Amara looked at the first question. Her mind went blank. Completely blank. The silence grew louder. Behind her, someone whispered, see? Her grip tightened. She closed her eyes briefly. And then, she remembered the night before the exam. The candlelight. The struggle. The moment she almost gave up but didn't. Her eyes opened. She started writing. Slowly at first. Then with growing certainty. Step by step. Line by line. The first solution took shape. A murmur spread through the class. That's right, someone whispered. Amara moved to the next question. Faster now. More confident. By the third, her hesitation was gone. She wasn't just answering. She was explaining. Breaking it down in a way even others could follow. Miss Hargrove watched closely. Not with doubt, but with focus. By the time Amara finished the last question, the room was no longer skeptical. It was silent for a different reason. Amara lowered the marker and stepped back. Her chest rose and fell steadily. She didn't look at anyone. She didn't need to. Miss Hargrove stepped forward. She looked at the board. Then at the class. Does anyone, she asked calmly, have a correction? No one spoke. The same boy from earlier avoided eye contact. The girl who had accused her crossed her arms, but said nothing. Miss Hargrove nodded slightly. Good. She turned to Amara. Well done. 2 simple words. But this time they carried weight. Real weight. Amara nodded faintly and returned to her seat. The whispers didn't return. But not everyone was ready to let it go. Later that afternoon, as students gathered outside, a small group blocked Amara's path. The same girl stepped forward. You think you're better than us now? She said. Amara shook her head. No. Then why act like it? I'm not acting, Amara replied calmly. That's the problem, the girl snapped. You were nothing yesterday. The words hit, but not the way they would have before. Amara met her gaze. I wasn't nothing, she said quietly. You just didn't see me. The group fell silent. For a moment no one had a response. Then the tension broke as a voice called out behind them. That's enough. Miss Hargrove. She stood a few steps away, her expression firm. This ends now, she said. The group dispersed quickly. The girl hesitated, then walked off without another word. Amara exhaled slowly. Are you all right? Miss Hargrove asked. Amara nodded. Pause. Then Miss Hargrove spoke again, softer this time. What you did today wasn't easy. Amara looked down. Neither was yesterday. Miss Hargrove almost smiled. Fair enough. They stood in silence for a moment. I misjudged you, Miss Hargrove said. Not because you lacked ability, but because I failed to look beyond results. Amara didn't respond immediately. Then she said, most people do. That honesty lingered. Miss Hargrove nodded slowly. I'm trying to change that. Amara looked at her, really looked this time. And for the first time she believed her. At home that evening the energy was different. Ngozi hummed softly as she worked. Amara sat nearby reading. You're smiling? her mother said suddenly. Amara blinked. Am I? Yes, Ngozi replied, glancing at her. You didn't used to. Amara thought about that. Maybe she didn't. School was good today, she admitted. Ngozi nodded as if she already knew. I told you, she said gently. People will see you eventually. Amara closed her book. What if they didn't? Ngozi paused. Then you keep going until they have no choice. Amara smiled faintly. Days passed. The change wasn't instant, but it was real. Students began asking Amara questions. Not mockingly. Genuinely. At first she answered quietly. Then more openly. Even the boy who had teased her approached one afternoon. Hey, how did you solve that second question? He asked awkwardly. Amara showed him. Step by step. No pride. No hesitation. Just clarity. Something shifted in the room over time. Not just how they saw her, but how they saw each other. And Miss Hargrove noticed. One morning she addressed the class again. Excellence, she said, is not about being the loudest or the fastest. She glanced briefly at Amara. It is about persistence, discipline, and the courage to continue when no one is watching. The room was quiet, not out of fear, but respect. Weeks later, results from a regional academic competition were announced. Ridgeway Academy had selected one student to represent them. The class waited. Ms. Hargrove held the envelope. This student, she said, represents not just achievement, but growth. She opened it. Amara Okoye. This time the reaction was different. No shock. No disbelief. Just applause. Real applause. Amara stood slowly. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was walking alone. That evening she sat once again at her small desk. The same flickering light. But now it didn't feel dim. It felt steady. She looked at her notebook. Then began to write. Not because she had something to prove, but because she had something to build. Some people will doubt you. Some will misunderstand you. Some will decide who you are before you even begin. But that doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. So if this story meant something to you, don't just keep it to yourself. Like the video. Share it with someone who needs that reminder. And drop a comment saying, never give up. Because somewhere out there, someone is still being overlooked. And your support might be the moment that helps them keep going.